Well, it's 2:45, so I think we'll start our workshop panel titled Local Food System Hubs, Food Sovereignty. This is going to address nutrition security as well. We've got three fabulous panelists, and I will introduce them. My name is Melinda Hemmelgarn. I'm a registered dietitian. I'm based in Columbia, Missouri, and I'm honored to be on the board of Beyond Pesticides. I'm also the host of Food Sleuth Radio, and this is a very common and important topic, as you know. So what are food hubs? We are going to have three examples of what food hubs mean to these panelists, but the USDA actually has a definition, and the USDA says that food hubs or regional food hubs are key mechanisms for creating large, consistent, reliable supplies of mostly locally or regionally produced foods. And I think if the pandemic taught us anything, it was that centralized food systems do not work, and that we are really geared for more redundancy in order to be resilient. So I will welcome our three panelists, and they will speak in the following order. Betsy Skoda will go first. She is the program manager for Healthy Food and Healthcare. It is a healthcare without harm program based in Providence, Rhode Island, or Betsy's based in Providence. It's a fabulous program, and anyone who's working at the intersection of healthcare and good food needs to know about healthcare without harm. Second will be Max Hentz, and he is with the Farmers Community Food Hub based in Westerly, Rhode Island. He is also the president of the Ayers Foundation, which he will describe a little bit about, but the website is absolutely gorgeous, so please go and visit that. It's truly inspiring. And then Autumn Hess, who is with Beyond Pesticides. She's also with the Maui Food Hub. You heard her presentation in the last plenary. She is also project director of Hawaii Organic Land Management. Welcome to all three of you. Betsy, let's start with you.
Melinda, and thank you for having me here today. Let me just share my screen. Okay, great. You should be able to see my screen. As Melinda said, I'm based in Providence, Rhode Island, and I work in the Healthy Food and Healthcare program of Healthcare Without Harm. I've been with Healthcare Without Harm in this program for about 5 years, and I have a background that includes cooking and restaurants and catering, as well as public health advocacy. And I've always been really interested in the intersection of food and environmental health. And so in my presentation, I'll provide an overview of our work with Healthcare Without Harm, and then specifically some details on a project that we're doing in New England right now. So Healthcare Without Harm was founded on the belief that as the only sector with healing as its mission, healthcare has an opportunity to use its ethical, economic, and political influence to create ecologically sustainable, equitable, and healthy communities. So the organization was founded over 20 years ago, and our mission is to transform healthcare worldwide, to reduce its environmental footprint, become a community anchor for sustainability, and a leader in the global movement for environmental health and justice. So to do this, we conduct research, model strategic interventions, and provide guidance and resources to accelerate best practice in the field. And we have programs, we have a healthy food program, as well as programs in climate and health, safer chemicals, and other areas as well. We also have a membership organization called Practice Green Health, which is the leading membership networking organization for sustainable healthcare, and works with our members to develop solutions and new practices to support environmental practices in healthcare across the country. So the Healthy Food and Healthcare program was founded in 2005 and works to harness the expertise, purchasing power, and investments of the healthcare sector to advance development of a sustainable food system. We believe that hospitals are influential institutions in their communities and have the power to affect social, economic, and environmental determinants of health, and that they can do this through their food procurement. Through their food procurement, they can promote greater sustainability, equity, and health in the ways that food is produced, processed, distributed, and consumed. So across the country, we partner with about a third of the hospitals, and we have innovation hubs. So New England is one of them. We also have colleagues in California, the Pacific Northwest, and the Southwest. And through these innovation hubs, we model strategies and create tools and resources that support healthcare facilities and clinicians to become leaders in shaping the food system, and to making sure that the food system aligns with their objectives toward promoting health and prevention-based healthcare. And we use the examples and practices that we model in these regions to then scale up through Practice Green Health and across the country. And so in New England, for instance, we have a regional leadership team that consists of hospitals from across the 6 New England states that meet on a quarterly basis to discuss issues of interest to them. We introduce producers to them, and also just discuss how they're doing everything from menuing to procuring sustainable foods and other materials for their food service operations. So at the foundation of our work is an environmental nutrition framework that holds that healthy food cannot be defined by nutrient quality alone. And we really need to apply an economic and socioeconomic lens to the food system. So as you all are likely very aware, over the past 50 years, there's been a tremendous amount of consolidation in food and agricultural production. Diversified farms growing multiple items have given way to specialization, and fewer companies are producing, processing, and distributing our food. And then there's been this concentration of production geographically as well. And with this consolidation and concentration of production, there's been a decline in rural economies, less diversification of the crop varieties, rigid systems vulnerable to disruption, as we saw during COVID, and also environmental degradation. So food production contributes significantly to greenhouse gas emissions. And we have some programming, national programming, which also operates at the regional level, focused on changing food service to promote, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So what's happening inside the hospitals? So the hospitals use kind of key strategy areas to create healthy food systems on campus. So they use their food purchasing to support regionalized and sustainable food production. In some cases, they actually grow food on campus, either as an example to show people what's possible, or actually to support on-site programming, whether it's in their food service or to serve a food pantry that distributes food to those in need. They're working to improve food campus environments, so making the healthy choice the easy choice. And then they also are working to address their food service operations, so looking to reduce food waste and make sure that food can be diverted or composted to reduce the overall environmental footprint of their operations. And so within those kind of 3 bucket areas, we have a number of strategies that we're focused on to build best practice. So these include increasing hospital purchasing in support for sustainably grown and produced foods, and also reducing purchases of meat and other animal-based products as a climate mitigation and health strategy. We also are working with hospitals to purchase more local foods as well, and also looking to increase opportunities for hospitals to support historically marginalized populations and connect their food service purchasing with institutional vendor diversity commitments, so that there are new opportunities for farm and food businesses with institutional markets. And then we are also looking to engage hospitals in how they can co-create solutions with their communities to build community health, wealth, and resilience through food system interventions. And with these various opportunities, there's a chance to connect the different strategies and achieve a greater impact. So for instance, in reducing meat, and I'll talk about this a little more in a minute, you can also shift some savings to purchasing more local products. And purchasing locally grown produce can create, or food products can create opportunities for local businesses. So hospitals are motivated to change their food service by interests in both health and sustainability. And with that interest, many of the strategies that I've discussed kind of fall under the umbrella of Plant Forward, which we sell, which is with the aim of which is to celebrate and emphasize plant-based resources, but is not limited to them. And so what this looks like in practice is, culinary creativity and food service choices that are able to make the most of the resources that they have. So there could be blended products, such as a blended burger, which we did a blended burger project a few years ago with New England institutions and used a beef and mushroom blend. Reducing meat portions and shifting meat away from the center of the plate, so that you may be serving less meat, but you may have an opportunity to serve more local and sustainable options. And also using marketing and promotions to educate and elevate menu items. So for instance, one of our hospital partners prior to COVID would do a weekly market table where they ran a CSA program for staff, and then they would purchase a number of CSA shares and run a special table that was separate from their main line and really meant to highlight the availability and wonderful local products that they could secure. And so food service directors, as I mentioned, are very creative. And so even though there's a price premium on local and also on organic, they're able to look for ways to incorporate these items into their menus. So local produce can often be price competitive when used in season. And while there is a price premium on organic, that premium varies immensely across different products. So they really do their research to figure out what's available and how they can make changes to incorporate items into their menus. Another thing they do along those lines is look for cost savings. So in their budgets, they may be able to save money on coffee service, for instance. And this is something we actually saw one of our New England hospitals do, where they wanted to purchase more local poultry, and were able to identify significant cost savings in their coffee service and divert those savings to the purchase of the antibiotic-free local poultry they were looking for. And then there's also, in planning their menus and looking for these savings, an opportunity to consider different items that they might not normally use in different forms of items. So for instance, using B-grade items or lightly processed items, such as frozen items. In terms of organic, it might be less expensive to access frozen organic products than it is to get fresh organic produce in season. So now I will shift gears to share about a specific project we're working on called the New England Food Processors Collective. So this project is designed as a sales and marketing service for regionally owned and operated value processors, and really grew out of a cross-sector effort to identify opportunities to invest in the regional food system. And we're supporting this coordination because the existing processors were looking for a way to work together. The aspects of them working together and the products really aligned with some of the priorities of the institutions. They are processing regionally sourced vegetables, and getting ready to use items works well for institutions. The organizations that are doing the processing also support business incubation services, which is creating new opportunities for businesses in the region. And then there was just the community health aspect, the idea that if we're sourcing regional products, we're creating new opportunities for farms to continue producing these products, giving us a level of food and nutrition security in the region. So we developed this project through a lot of research. We conducted a feasibility study, and we asked for priorities around local purchasing. And we found from institutions that they were motivated by, an interest in higher quality products, wanting to support the local economy, and also to support local farms. And they were really interested in the ability to order from multiple vendors through a single source and to receive it in a single delivery. So we really, we also identified that there was this real need for help in building relationships, that both institutions and producers often don't have the time and resources to develop relationships. So having someone in the middle who can cultivate these relationships and build sales for the processors could be really helpful for their financial stability over the long term. And we learned that farmers had the capacity to scale and were interested in selling to the processors because it's a new market for them. So the processing came up because institutions regularly cite the lack of year-round available product in New England as a barrier to sourcing local, and processing allows for season extension and greater year-round availability. And then institutions also face labor and staff capacity issues. These items are ready to use, and then the processing itself is at a scale that can really contribute to growing the regional food economy. These organizations already have the equipment to do this, and they don't need, it's expensive enough that it would be hard for an individual farm to secure this equipment and take on the startup costs of doing this. And they offer a variety of services beyond doing the processing. They do co-packing for farms, so those farms can take it back and sell it themselves. They produce their own lines, and then they also share this space and business support services for food entrepreneurs to grow their own businesses. And for institutions, they, in facing labor shortages, ready-to-use products are incredibly beneficial. It means they're securing high-quality products that align with their local commitments, and it allows them to meet those local commitments. And they'll also receive, marketing and promotional support. And the processors get some of those same benefits too. They often don't, in addition to cultivating relationships, they don't necessarily have the capacity to do a lot of marketing and promotions and develop various distribution channels. So there are a lot of win-win opportunities in this project. And so what's next? We're about to finalize some branding work and marketing materials. We're hiring a sales consultant, and we'll be launching a website at the end of the summer. And then we're also one of the key elements of this project is expanding. So looking for new collaborators. We're hoping once we get certain systems up and running, we can bring on new processing organizations and new distribution partners, and are excited about the opportunity to collaborate with other food hubs and processors in the region. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Betsy. And of course, for more information, Healthcare Without Harm, all of Betsy's slides will be available, of course, in the recording. And just a friendly reminder, I know there were some people having problems with sound. All of the presentations have been fully recorded, and so you will have access to them for one full year on this platform, and then after that on the YouTube channel through Beyond Pesticides. If you'll keep your microphones muted at all times, I think that will help us with the sound. And we'll have a hard stop at 4:45. So just a friendly reminder how this will work. So our next speaker is going to be Max Hentz. Max, I welcome you. You've got 2 projects going on, and welcome.
Well, thank you very much. Can everybody hear me okay? I trust you can hear me.
Go ahead.
Yes, you can. Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure you could hear me. Well, I'm going to take a slightly different approach here. The origin of our food hub is rather complex. It was not born out of a pandemic or a crisis. It was sort of a natural progression, if you will, of the businesses that we started beginning back in the 90s, and then through the early 2000s, which eventually led to the establishment of the food hub. The original entity, so if you just bear with me, I'm going to tell that story, and I'm going to share some of the challenges that we had along the way, and of course some of the successes that we've had, and that have led to basically a very successful food hub that moves more than 50 tons of food a year and supports over 15 partner farms in the collective. The original entity was the Hillendale Farm, hence the Hillendale Food Hub. The Hillendale Farm was originally a dairy operation in the early 1900s by my great-grandfather, and Hobart Ayers was his name, and that ceased to operate in the 1950s. And the land here in Rhode Island laid fallow and grew up. The pastures became occupied with trees, and we came down here in the 90s and started to take care of the land, carved out a small area where we started our organic farming operation, known today as the Hillendale Farm Organic Growers. That farm has been growing seasonal produce for 27 years. This is the 27th year in business. And that farm is the site, so the venue for our nonprofit, which is the Ayers Foundation. That's a foundation that has a mission of reconnecting each of us with our bodies, good health, and the environment through local food and farming. I think now would be a good time to bring up the Ayers Foundation site and go to the mission section of that site, where we talk a little bit about our two-pronged approach to making a difference around the origin of food and health in general. So the foundation was established in 2010, and we decided to reach out to area farms across Rhode Island and Connecticut to basically set up living classrooms for inquiry-based expeditionary learning, where children and adults can see, hear, feel, and smell where food and agricultural products emanate, and pitch in to help with the work of creating fresh food in an environmentally responsible manner. Since 2010, when we established the foundation, we've seen firsthand how these compelling outdoor hands-on experiences have prompted around 7,000 student visitors to affiliated farms in southern Rhode Island and eastern Connecticut to apply their academic and thinking skills to their own choices about food, land, and health. This was the sort of real basis of our work at Ayers Foundation. But at the same time, we knew that we needed to play some kind of a role in helping to sustain and grow entrepreneurial farms and the farm economies of New England and other bioregions by building educated food awareness and demand for farm fresh food among families, schools, hospitality businesses, markets, and other consumer groups, by helping farms develop additional revenue streams related to environmental education, tourism, and new products. So not only do we aspire as a foundation to proliferate local and regional food, but we also want to play a part in growing food awareness and food sovereignty, choices, and protecting the choices that people should have in terms of what they eat and how they source their food. So education was a big part, was very central to the establishment of our food hub. So we can honestly say that the Farmers Community Food Hub, which is another name for the Hillendale Food Hub, was born out of the Ayers Foundation, which is a nonprofit and a public charity. We like to think about the Farmers Community Food Hub as our sort of the commercial arm to the charitable work that we do. So I think now would be a good time to pull up the Food Hub website, which is www.foodhubrhodeisland.com, and I would go to the About tab and pull up the Health Benefits page. And folks will have a chance to look at that as I speak more about this. So some of the things that we promote through the Food Hub and through Ayers Foundation, which we think helps people make better choices around food and how they source their food from local farms, and hence through the food hub, which supports local farms, is to really try to get their head around what organic really means. Okay, going beyond the USDA definition of organic, and speak more to the health benefits to animals and insects, but also to humans themselves. When we eat from a more intimate supply chain, for example, is the food more nutritious? Well, there are studies out there, believe it or not, that say it is, not just because it's fresher, but because it's grown organically. It has it's richer in vitamin C, polyphenolic compounds, which is a plant compound, and other nutrients and anti-cancerous nutrients in them. So this is very important, but also the transient microbes that we get from sourcing from a more intimate supply chain, and how that plays into the health of our microbiome. Also overlooked by a lot of people when you buy from at a large grocery store or wherever. Your food's coming from 1,500, 2,000 miles away. It's probably rather sterile, and it probably doesn't have much microbes from your local surrounds on them, and that's a real important part of your overall human health. Also looking at the climate implications. You know, when you're buying beef, are you buying grass-fed beef, and is that beef grown on a grass and beef farm that's regenerative in nature? And how well are the practices orchestrated and carried out, and how much carbon is being built up in the soil because of those good practices? This is really the true sort of field to table or farm to table understanding. And when you understand it, you actually know what kind of a difference you're making, not just for your own personal health, but the health of everything in that supply chain. And I think that's the profound sort of understanding that we're promoting. And we believe that and we've seen it firsthand, when people finally actually get that and understand it, then their purchasing habits change. So this is where the food hub comes in, because the food hub is not the educator. The food hub is building the infrastructure and is providing the logistics and the marketing and business acumen to go out and represent those small farmers, be their publicist almost, so to speak, and go to bat for them and make sure that their food that they're growing, they're working so hard at growing, has a fair opportunity, for all the right reasons which we've just touched on, to end up on a table at a nice restaurant somewhere, or at a green grocer, or at a specialty market, or at a farm stand, or wherever, at schools. So this is where the food hub has had a lot of success. And at this point, I think I can talk a little bit about who and how many we serve at the food hub. So the food hub has been in existence for about 8 or 9 years at this point. Initially back in 2011, we just started dabbling in it. This was after we started our nonprofit. We didn't really formalize it until probably 2012 or 2013. And we have grown now to be a pretty significant sized food hub, albeit still pretty small, I think, in the larger scheme of things. We currently service 30 hospitality businesses, some of them 4 and 5 star. We service hospitality businesses primarily in the eastern Connecticut and southern Rhode Island, so Washington County, as well as Quidnick Island. We service 4 green grocers One of those is in Connecticut, and 3 of them are in Rhode Island, including Newport. We service 2 specialty markets, so those are sort of mom and pop shops that provide meats and produce and other specialty products. We service 1 school that we're very proud of, which is in Narragansett, called the Middlebridge School, that specializes in educating 9 through 12 students with ADD, ADHD, and other learning challenges. And one of the reasons we got into that school was because we made it clear that we felt, and we provided studies, facts to back it up, that kids that have these learning disadvantages really need better food. And we had a big breakthrough there, and we've been working with them now for 2 or 3 years. We also supply 3 farm stands with food in Rhode Island. And as far as who else we serve, of course, we can't forget about our partner farms, because we're providing our partner farms with a service. And we have, at this point right now, 15 or 16 partner farms. Of course, this is getting into high season, so in the winter, we're probably dropped back to about 6 to 8, I would say, partner farms. And then one of the areas, or the markets that we've been focusing in on, especially during COVID, and even now more, is the private, so direct retail. We're currently at about 50 private customers, and that's not even really doing much marketing. We use our own company website, which is the Food Hub Rhode Island website, as well as our tech partners site, which is http://shop.freshcon.com, which is a Rhode Island based company. Now you can order online and you can have it delivered, or you can pick it up. So that's who we serve, and we seem to be adding hospitality businesses, so adding customers, and also partner farms pretty much every year since we've been in existence. And as I noted before, we're going to easily exceed 100,000 pounds of food that we buy in and provide our customers every year, this year. So how did we make our Food Hub a reality, and what challenges did we face? And I'd like to talk a little bit about infrastructure, logistics, as well as equipment. So,
Max, if I might interrupt for just a moment, we've got about 3 more minutes before Autumn will speak, and then we can pick up during the Q&A again.
Okay, I'll try to wrap up pretty quickly here.
All right.
The way we basically established our Food Hub is by leveraging the strong markets that we established as a standalone farm. And in doing so, the breadth of product offering that came from our collective was immediately well received by existing customers for obvious reasons. They had better access, and they could deal with one entity, which is us. We knew that in order to move, store, and process more food than our farm could grow, we needed cold storage and refrigerated delivery vehicles. And we learned quickly that wagons and coolers were a start, but are inefficient and more laborious. And I will say, the USDA LFPP, the Local Food Promotion Program, we were a beneficiary of, and we received, I believe, in the first grant, approximately $85,000, which allowed us to add that infrastructure, get the delivery vehicle, cold storage, and the rest of it. It was an incredible breakthrough. I would say that a challenge, but also the reason why we were successful, was we got organized, but we also helped our farmers get organized so that a supply chain and customer relationship management system could be set up and implemented. So this means payment processing online using QuickBooks or what have you. This means regular and good communication on both the supply and demand sides so that product can be grown in sufficient quantities, harvested in a timely fashion, and brought to market to meet customer demand and expectations. This means a lot of planning during the off season so that partner farms know what to grow and what they can grow in surplus. And we'll be ready to take it off their hands and get it to our customers in a timely fashion. This also means helping farmers, which don't always do this very well, meet acceptable quality standards for packaging and temperature control in the transport of food from the field to the hub and ultimately to the customer. So preserving product integrity in order to capture the essence of local food, basically. And logistics, I think it's really important when you set up your supply and who you're going to be servicing is to map out a delivery and aggregation routes based on partner farm interest and the geographical presence of your customers. I can speak a little bit later during the Q&A on how we measure success, because I think those are really good metrics to use, and then some ideas and how, as far as starting up hubs in other parts of the country for those interested.
That's great, Max. You've got a real model program, and I think measuring success is key and should definitely be addressed during the Q&A. We've got 10 minutes for Autumn Ness, and I just encourage people to put your questions and thoughts into the chat and the question section, and Deb Symes, our assistant, will be helping us address those questions, but we have many, many questions, including those measures of success. So thank you again, Max, and Autumn, welcome.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for including me in this discussion. I won't go into repeat because a lot of you heard my presentation in the previous thing about kind of how we got started. But where I ended off there was how we're using the Maui hub, the food hub, to to move the needle on how much of our agriculture on Maui is organic. And I think that's kind of why I got involved in this whole thing to begin with, because we wanted to make sure that the organic farmers we have are not only succeeding, but they're showing people that this is a viable way to feed people and that leads to an increase in local organic food production. So like I said in the previous presentation, in the beginning, because of COVID, we took all farmers, and we haven't kicked anybody off of the platform. We just want to help you. We wanted to help everybody move food through the COVID crisis and to stay in business. If you are a pesticide or anti-GMO activist, you are probably familiar with the accusations that you're also anti-farmer. And that is very much a pot that my colleagues on Maui have been put in for years. That if we ask for more transparency or better pesticide law, then we are put in this anti-farmer bubble. And that's really hard to get out of, And so when you're there and then you go to, we subpoena the pesticide records from the state every year and look at who's using the most pesticides. I know who the farmers are, but they also know who I am, and I can't go to them. There's no trust there. There's no relationship there. I can't go to them and say, hey, what do you think about going organic? There's never been that kind of relationship there. But because of the hub, and because during a time of crisis, ironically, the anti-pesticide activists were the ones rolling their sleeves up and helping our farmers, organic or not, get through the crisis. Now we have this really amazing bond and relationship forged through crisis, and so now the conversation is very different. We have emails and questions and records of our customers asking for organic strawberries. We have data from our website that shows that people will pay more for an organic cucumber than they will for a conventional. So when I go to a farmer that's spraying their strawberries, I can say, hey, look, we're friends. I have data that will show that if you go organic, we can sell more of your product and your workers will be better taken care of. That's a whole different conversation. And that's where we're at right now. So it's really exciting for me that we have built this food sovereignty system that's starting to show a gross increase in how much food is being produced, while also I can put my Beyond Pesticides hat on and go and talk to these farmers and say, hey, we have resources. If you want to go organic, let's help you find funding. I'll help you find a mentor. We'll label your product in transition for the next 3 years. And if you need help, getting different soil amendments, I'll help you write a grant for that kind of stuff. And we're partners here, and we just published or are about to publish. We just voted on a whole new list of kind of values that our hub works under. And the first value is that we recognize that organic agriculture is inherently better. And, you know, we recognize that there is a need to reduce and rid ourselves of pesticides and fertilizer use while remaining staunchly pro-farmer. And that sentence is everything to me as an activist, both a pesticide activist and a farm advocate. You know, finally, the Food Hub has allowed us to bring those two things together. So yeah, that's really the biggest thing I wanted to add, unless there's other questions.
Okay, well, we can check the Q&A and chat for additional questions, or we can move into everyone addressing the issue of measuring success. And that, of course, is something everyone wants to know. We can go kind of round robin with that, although I do have a question for Max specifically with regard to measuring success in feeding those kids with disabilities. You know, many times these schools are faced with budgetary challenges. And if you're going to advocate for organic food because it's better for these kids, can you show me data that these kids have actually benefited from the food through local farmers that has not been treated with pesticides? So how about if we focus on that measures of success question? We'll start with Max, then we'll go to Betsy, and then we'll go to Autumn. Sound good?
Sure, thank you.
Okay.
So because we've only been feeding these students for about, well, with COVID, of course, they weren't in the entire time, so I would say maybe a year and a half. It's hard to get the data to back up any claim that food is a difference maker, as particularly with these students. But you know, there is evidence, nutritional in the field of nutrition. There is evidence and studies that show that students perform better academically, and student athletes perform better athletically when they have access to better, more nutrient dense food that doesn't have a bunch of stuff in it, additives, including high fructose corn syrup, and other additives that anti-enzymatic, or whatever the case might be, preservatives. So there is evidence out there. We have not engaged the school in a program to track the students' performance, but I think that now that you bring it up, I think there's an opportunity there. And as far as so I will bring that up with the head and the assistant head of the school, probably during the summer here, to see what we can set up and you know, what that might cost. As far as you touched on, you know, it's a great idea to get students at a private school like this, but better yet, which has been the hardest nut to crack, within the public school system. And I've delved into that. I have fought tooth and nail over the years through our farm to school program to get better food to the students, because they have every much of a right to that as a more fortunate student in a private school. But it's been incredibly challenging, and we did make a little bit of a difference, and we did have a few breakthroughs, but nothing like we would like to see. So how do you pay for that money, even at a private school? And through our work over the last, I would say, 8 or 9 years, where we have tried to work with private schools around New England, we have learned that even those with a pretty significant size endowment are not too receptive to spending extra money, because they're controlled by boards that don't fully understand the implications around you are what you eat and what your food eats, okay, which is our mantra. So we got resistance there too, but our breakthrough at the Middlebridge School was one, the students there and the case that we could make pretty easily. And two, I went to one of the benefactors of the Ayers Foundation, introduced them to the project, and they immediately funded the school with $30,000. So that $30,000, a lot of it went to educational programming, which we're a part of, but I would say the vast majority of it went to buying better food. So that was the way we got over that hump. I can speak to other measures of success since it's my turn. How do we measure success at the Food Hub? We've got about maybe 6 bullets here, and there are other ways too, but these are the 6 that came to mind. One is the number of partner farms that we have and the number that we add in addition to what we have per year that sign on and sell through the Food Hub. We've seen growth in the first year of just one other partner farm. In the second year, we had probably 200% growth. Third year, another 200 or 300% growth, and we quickly got up to over 12 farms. I would say after the third or fourth year in existence, and we're still adding one producer or one farmer almost every year that since we've been in existence now. So over the last 2 or 3 years, we've still been adding 1 to 2 each year. I think that's a good sign of the health of the business and an indication of success. Another metric is the number of new customers added per year. So because of the value proposition that we represent, because it's easier for people to source local food through the Food Hub, because we're just one entity instead of 10 entities, we have easily been able to add new customers who actually get it, who actually care and understand what the farm to table movement is. It's not something romantic or anything like that. It's much deeper, much more complex than that. So we have customers that we have impacted one way or the other or inspired, and new customers that we're able to add each year. The amount of additional food existing customers are buying per year, which I think is an interesting metric. When I say additional food, it's not, we're very biased to organic, like Autumn is, but we don't discriminate against non-organic, because we have found, because we personally vet all of our partners, that I would say 95, 96, 97% of our partner farms that are not organic grow organically. And that's not atypical of small agricultural enterprises. It's much different animal when you're looking at large conventional farms around the Midwest and New Mexico and Texas and California. And that's why I think a lot of people today are buying organic for the wrong reason, because they don't fully understand. It goes beyond just pesticides. It actually goes to food miles. It goes to microbes. It goes to what's in your food because of how it's grown. It goes to carbon sequestration because of farming practices, and so much more. I would also say that another metric is the amount of food that is captured, marketed, and or preserved through, let's say, a value-added operation, which is part of our plans. We have a foundation that we have preserved, and we are just about to start building on it, where we will have a small teaching kitchen, which will also be used to preserve foods. So if you can capture it, you can market it, or you can preserve it and sell it or donate it to the hungry, instead of it being wasted because of poor marketing, logistics, and the lack of other quality control measures. Farmers that are faced with moving food and marketing it on their own are experiencing a huge amount of waste. And that's where the Food Hub can really make a difference. And that's where we've been successful. The increase in value-added food production as part of or in partnership with the Food Hub is another metric. So if you have the capacity, or you have a partner that has the capacity to add value and preserve food, and you're seeing an increase in that every year, not only are you reducing waste, but you're increasing sales of your partner farms. And lastly, the increases in sales and profit of our partners.
Thank you, Max. Those were wonderful suggestions for anyone trying to prove that this is the best way forward. Betsy, how about you? How do you measure success through healthcare without harm?
Sure. Well, I'll speak specifically to the Northeast Food Collective project that we're working on in New England. And I mean, I think that the metrics are similar to those that Max shared. We're looking at the the impact of having a means to coordinate sales and marketing for these processors on their sale. How can we help them increase sales? That's a primary point that we're trying to get. But then what does that mean for them as food businesses, as well as their farm partners? So how does it contribute to increased farm sales? How does it contribute to job creation within these processors? And then on the institutional side, we haven't done this yet, but Healthcare Without Harm through various projects has done on-site surveys of customers to try and understand their perceptions of local and organic and seasonal. So we'll also be doing something around the marketing and evaluating how the impact of the marketing, the posters, that promotional materials that we are able to share with institutions to see how those impact customer perceptions on site. Those are the key ways.
Thank you, Betsy.
Yeah, thanks for that. I actually, I'm going to turn the question on its head a little bit because it kind of went in a direction assuming that organic and nutritional food is more expensive, and how do we, what do we do about that? So in one of the ways we measure success is by dismantling that whole thing. The reason I found that organic food is so much more expensive than conventional food is because the organic farmers are functioning independently with zero subsidies, with, they're responsible for paying. Somebody's got to pay for all this, right? Organic certification, all that. So by sharing resources, when the Maui Hub started helping farmers share resources and effectively cut out the middleman, and also because we're a nonprofit, my biggest measure of success is the fact that we can provide organic produce to people for cheaper prices than what the same thing can be sold for conventionally at the grocery store. And the reason that that's possible is because we've rewritten the food distribution system. Because we're a nonprofit, we got grants up front to start, and we did just secure another county grant to pay for our next big infrastructure level up, so that we don't have to pass those costs on to the consumer. We're a nonprofit that operates like a business model. So we paid for all the big costs up front through grants and that kind of stuff. And now we're able to run the business and have just the sales price cover, our basic daily operations, our packers and stuff like that. So for me, our biggest cost measure of success is on EBT or SNAP, has food stamp benefits, can come to the hub and buy organic food for cheaper than what they would pay for regular food at the grocery store, and the farmers get paid better. So it almost sounds impossible, right? When we say this to people, they're like, what? That math doesn't work out. But it's because we rewrote the system. The farmers get more money, the food is cheaper, and it's organic. And so for all of us here that are working on food security and food systems, yes, we have to measure success in poundage and income and all that kind of stuff. But how are we changing the conversation about what is possible with food distribution is a really big deal for me. Let's see. I often talk about food infrastructure in the same way I talk about it with city infrastructure, right? Like when a town is being put together, the town gets together and uses public funds to build the streets, right? And then the private developers build the homes along the street. Our food system is kind of the same, except that right now that big infrastructure is only being paid for and utilized by gigantic corporate farms. And the government is only subsidizing the infrastructure that pays for these big corporate farms, right? So if collectively we want to see more independent organic farms succeed, we have to pay for that infrastructure up front, right? We have to publicly fund the aggregating and the processing facilities and all of this stuff, and then they will kind of populate, you know, the small independent farms along the way, and that's what we're seeing happen, and on a small scale here. So I'm hoping that that blows up nationally, you know.
Yeah, these are such critical discussions. So I have to be cognizant of the time, because with this platform we have a hard break at 3:45. So I'm going to thank everybody right now.
You want me to speak briefly to those costs as well, or not?
Yes, sure. I do, but I need to just do one housekeeping thing before we launch into the next thing. So that is, thank you all for being here. Remember, if you've got some last minute questions or chats, put them in there. Stick around for our final session. And remember Beyond Pesticides moving forward for a wealth of information. Okay, so Max, I do want you to address that, but I have a burning question. Deb Symes, our assistant, had a great suggestion. She said, you know, how about if we ask people to contribute associations or organizations that we need to partner with to help move food hubs forward? And then I also want to know, if you have 5 minutes in a room with Tom Vilsack and President Biden, what would you ask for from a policy perspective? And Max, we can start with you.
Okay, and so you want me to provide some names of some organizations that you believe would make an interest in?
Yes, or you can, if you want to think of them later, you can put them in the chat and we'll collect them for all of our attendees broadly.
All right, that makes sense.
Okay.
I think if I had them in the room, you know, I believe that the federal government is very effective with programs that provide funding. I think the LFPP is a good case in point to food hub businesses like ours. Am I still on? Yes, I am. Okay.
You are, Max, but you got to make it quick.
Okay, and so I think that the federal government is already doing a very, very good job, I believe, at providing funding. And I think that Tom Vilsack and President Biden should continue to grow those programs, but that money should be funneled down to individual states and organizations within the state that are more intimately familiar with those respective economies and the players, the stakeholders in those states. Rhode Island, of course, is very small, so it's much easier. And to make sure that the small farms and other stakeholders in the food business, in the agricultural business, have a fair crack at accessing those dollars for the development of food hubs, but also for the establishment of their own farms. And I think that's really, really important, because often, in my view, the people that are applying for those monies are not getting the same access for whatever reason. We don't need to get into that today. But
okay, we've got to move on in order to give everybody their 1 minute crack before we're cut off. Betsy, you got Tom Vilsack and you got President Biden in a room. What policy changes should we be advocating for you?
I think I would ask for work on a national food policy similar to what we've seen at the state level. I'm particularly familiar with the New England states and their work on a food strategy plan, but I think something that connects food access, climate, health, and economic development in one place. We often, these things get siloed, so that's what I would want to see.
Perfect. Autumn.
Remove the requirement to have paid for organic certification, publicly fund organic certification and all of the supporting processes. That's all. That's the shortest answer I have right now.
Okay, we got it all. We got it all in. We're going to have the hard break at 3:45. So I want to thank Deb Symes, my assistant. I want to thank Max and Autumn and Betsy for great presentations. Remind everybody we're going to have a little break, but then we want to come back and hear our last speaker and have